All right, here we are, everyone. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for April 12th, 2017. Our apologies to everyone in the room and watching this on television for starting late tonight. We were over at a very nice event for the school committee honoring two members. We have some background noise. Honoring two members of the school committee who are stepping down. Their chairman, Leroy Walker, and Kristen Bagley-Jones. So, very nice event, and congratulations to Leroy and Kristen on all their years of service. And we as a board thank them, and we read some nice proclamations for them. And related to that, David, you have an announcement that you wanted to make.
Yes, I do, and thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me this time. And that was an amazing event for two people who have given an awful lot of service to this town, and will continue to do so, as they've said. So, tirelessly working on behalf of the community. I just want to give a little update. Caitlin Clavette. I want to take a moment to share a project that the Milton's community is working on to honor Caitlin Clavette. Ms. Clavette was a dedicated art teacher here in Milton who inspired many of our children through her teaching and artwork. After a tragic accident that took her life in February of 2016, the community will honor her dedication and inspiration by purchasing art display towers for each of the 4 Milton Public schools. In addition to purchasing the art display towers, the community will host an art show on Wednesday, June 14th at 5 p.m. in the Keys Room of the Milton Library. If you would like to join in on this amazing project, please send a contribution by April 28th, made payable to the Glover PTO. Please note, honoring Caitlin Clavette. The address to send the donation is Glover School, attention Glover PTO, 225 Canton Avenue, Milton, Mass. 02186. While your contributions will go towards the purchase of art display towers and the art show, the remaining proceeds, if any, will be donated to the Caitlin Clavette Foundation. And that's www.caitlinclavettefoundation.org. And I just want to make a quick note that Caitlin's parents made a $1,000 donation in her memory today to the Glover PTO. And understand that the Glover PTO has organized this under Caitlin's name, but this is a district-wide initiative. And to really honor someone that the boys and girls in the Milton Public School system really looked up to and showed through their artwork their passion, and her influence was really duly noted. So thanks for this time. I appreciate it. She was a wonderful teacher, a wonderful role model for our students, and I hope that people at home will support this initiative.
That's a nice tribute. All right, we'll start with minutes. We have 4 meeting dates of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 31st, 2017, February 28th, 2017, March 7th, 2017, and March 13th, 2017, as written.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We're scheduled to meet next Tuesday, April 18th at 7:30 p.m. for a very short meeting, and then we will meet after that, the nights of town meeting. We expect we'll go at least May 1st, 2nd, and 4th, and possibly into the following week, 1 hour before town meeting starts, and those meetings will be over at the Milton High School. Do we have anyone tonight who would like to address the board at Citizen Speak? Seeing none, we'll go on to our first item, which is the audit contract, and we have the chair and a member of our audit committee and the town accountant. Would you both like to come up and join us?
For the next item.
Okay. Whatever your preference is, Amy.
Yeah,
I thought you were here for this one.
No, I'm for the next
misunderstanding.
one.
Okay,
So I
all
don't
right.
want to steal the thunder.
All right.
But thank you.
Oh, sure. Good evening, Kathy and Jay. Could you just identify yourselves for the people who are watching?
Sure thing. I'm Kathleen White, and the chair of the audit committee. Jay Fung.
Jay Fundling, member of the audit committee.
Good evening, and thank you for coming in tonight.
Sure. We have our recommendation, which I can read to you. It's 2 quick sentences, but then happy to give you short color commentary if you'd like any sort of, insight into our process. Our ultimate recommendation after going through this process, looking at the independent auditing firms, is that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen to engage the accounting firm of Powers & Sullivan to perform the independent financial audits for the 3 years ending June 17, 18, and 19. And the engagement letter should include the proposed transition to new team members within the firm, within Powers & Sullivan for 18 and 19. So continuing with the same team for the current year. So just very quickly, the process that we went through, we issued the request for proposals in January, issued it to 3 firms, received back 2 from those 3, and received 3 others. So received 5 in total. The audit committee met, went through after reviewing them independently on our own, met, eliminated 2 right away, just based on capabilities and experience in Massachusetts. And then there were 3 firms that we did bring in and had a marathon session one evening of, spent an hour with each of the 3 remaining firms and got some feedback and interviews with them based on really, all 3 very capable firms, but 2 of them in particular had lots of experience in Massachusetts. And understanding the issue of transition, there's a lot of transition going on within, town management this year. There was no demonstrable sort of distinction of, are we getting anything new or different? No one from town had been out in the marketplace in a long time. Let's see who's out there and see what other possibilities there are. The other options did not seem like a distinctive difference or, sort of upgrade to the good firm that has been doing our work for years. But being sensitive to the issue of, fresh set of eyes and all, we thought, let's stick with the same team this year. We do have a lot of, sort of internal town management change. We'll stick with the same team and then ask them to switch up the team next year. So there'll be a new partner on the engagement, new manager. But obviously, they'll have a transition year to kind of learn from the current team, too. But it'll be a fresh set of eyes for next year. So that was the conclusion we came to.
It sounds like a good idea for transitioning it to a different team in the second year.
Sounds like a very thorough process, too, so.
That was our recommendation. I don't know if you want anything
Yeah, no,
in
town
writing?
accountant Amy Dexter and myself sat through the final 3. I would like to commend the committee for the work they did to put the RFP together, get it to the presentation point, and then the interviews themselves, where it was a long night we were here. It was very, very thorough, and I appreciate all the work that you did with that. And I appreciate the foresight to take a look at the first year, acknowledging what's in place and how well it works, and then transition it to something new. So we do have a new set of eyes with the same company looking at it in year 2 and 3. So I thought that was very,
Yeah.
very good work by the committee.
Okay. Do you need a written?
Yes, yeah.
Written copy of that? Great.
Thank you.
Right.
And I know the
Thank
town
you.
administrator provided a lot of assistance to you as well, so that was...
Yeah, there was great support from Mike and Amy and the other 3 members of the committee beyond the 2 of us. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Kathy and Jay.
Well, why don't we just, while you're here, why don't we have a motion to,
Go ahead, Tom.
for the
Okay,
contract?
I'll propose a motion to award the contract for audit services to the town for the calendar year 2017. It's actually fiscal year.
Fiscal year,
Yeah. For the fiscal year 2017, 18, and 19 to Powers and Sullivan of 100 Quinnipiac Parkway, Suite 101, Wakefield, Massachusetts, in the amount of $53,000 per fiscal year, and to authorize the town administrator to sign related documents on the board's behalf.
I'll second that motion.
I think there's a separate little thing beyond the 53 for the
There is.
pension report.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what, the consensus of the board, obviously, is for the additional amount to be paid. I forget what that's for. It's for, is that
Well,
the
there's the-
scholarships and the school funds, the separate?
Easy.
No, it's not the,
Well, no, it's, there's, GASB 68 and 45, soon to become 70, I forget what it, but they're the pension fund and the OPEB.
Okay, I thought
the
there was
school
another
is
one.
separate. The school is a separate issue.
Okay.
We
Right.
had asked them, and they were contracting separately for
Okay,
that.
great.
But every
Okay.
couple of years.
But that's clearly the intent, so it's not written into our draft of a motion.
I could just
guess.
make a friendly amendment to include those funds into this motion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? And if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, thank you, Kathy and Jay and the audit committee, all of the members, for all the work you did, and we appreciate all the
Yep.
time you spent on this, and your patience tonight in waiting for us to
thank you.
get started while we were over at the school
Agenda
department.
item 1, that's good. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Number 6 on our agenda is a discussion with the town accountant regarding some revised capital improvement planning committee recommendations.
Hi, Amy.
Good evening,
Hi,
Amy.
everyone. Nice to see you. Okay. How would you like me to start?
Haven't
Do
seen
want
you
me to-
carrying those big books around in a while.
I know, right? I can actually handle this one. Well, I was before this board a few months ago with a capital recommendation, and we, the committee has met a few times since then, and we made some revisions, and also we discussed and reviewed the request for the water, sewer, and stormwater enterprise fund. So those are also included in the memo that I submitted to the board. Basically, this is a revised recommendation. I tried to summarize it by article so that we could see how it fit into the warrant. But basically, at a top-level summary, total capital needs requested for FY18 exclusive of the enterprise funds were $14,582,164, of which the capital committee recommends $4,747,119 for the general fund. For the water enterprise fund, $2,830,000 was requested, of which $1,045,000 is recommended. And for the sewer enterprise fund, $2,132,000 was requested, of which the capital committee is recommending. Hold on a second. I think I messed up there. Sewer enterprise fund, we're recommending $1,432,000 of $2,132,000, and then of the stormwater enterprise fund, we're recommending $800,000. I think I messed up a little bit in that summary. I don't have the total that was requested for stormwater. But of the changes, the amendments that were made, there was an item in the original recommendation for use of free cash for $150,000 to be used for preservation of permanent records by the town clerk. We reduced that recommendation by $95,000 to $55,000, which will get her a significant number. She was estimating about $15,000 a year to preserve the records over a 10-year plan. So we, in a past year, have already given her $15,000. So this is giving her almost half of what she needs, so she can get some significant work done, and then she'll come back to the committee next year and ask for the balance. Of that $95,000 reduction, we included recommendations totaling $135,000, of which $40,000 is from variable message boards to be used throughout the town, radar speed monitoring equipment for $15,000 to be used throughout the town. The variable message boards is $40,000. Town clerk public records software of $40,000. This is to assist the town clerk in her capacity as records access officer, and $40,000 for the Fire Space Needs Committee. That committee's request was originally $2 million. That included some engineering, architecture, of which the capital committee did not recommend. We can't afford that at this time, so we're basically giving them some seed money to get started as a building committee. This should say Fire Space Building Committee, not Needs Committee. I apologize. So that's basically the changes, other than the fact that we approved the water, sewer, and enterprise fund recommendations. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Has this already gone over to the warrant committee? Do they know these changes are coming?
He has seen it, but I have not gone. Yes, the chair, Lee Michael, has seen it. He knows that I've made revisions. This is reflected in the printed warrant under the assumption that it would be approved. If not, then we would amend the warrant.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any discussion?
No.
Or questions?
Thank you.
And do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the revised recommendation of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee as outlined in its March 29, 2017 memo.
And I'll second that.
If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion with the representatives regarding the Carberry Walcott Estate for a proposed development agreement. And I know we have an attorney representing one of the abutters. And if there's anyone else here you'd like to bring up to the table, please feel free.
Hey, Tony.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all of you as well for your patience in waiting while we got started late tonight.
Good evening, thank you. Ned Corcoran, and I'm here with my client Jack Dawley from Northland Residential.
And I'm Tony Cicchello, and my client is Jack Weeks, who's in a butter to the Carberry property down at the end of Carberry Lane.
Thank you.
So, since we were last before the board about a month ago, we've spent a fair amount of time with meetings with neighbors, direct contact with Tony on some redrafting of the development agreement. I think I submitted drafts to you last week. There were a couple of exhibits that were not attached, and I thought I would at least hand out sets. The first exhibit, it would really be Exhibit B, which is currently the proposed site plan, which shows 58 units. And that's been essentially in its current format since December of last year. And then we've done some refining on it, but this still is the basic plan that's being proposed, and it's what's provided for in the draft in the bylaw that's been proposed, recommended by the planning board and the warrant committee. The next set of exhibits would be Exhibit F1 and F2, and they are two sets of photo renderings. The first two show options as to how the center roadway would be filled in with stone wall built in. You can see in the smaller inset photo what the current condition is. It's directly across the street from Gene O'Brien and Ken Mader driveway. And so we came up with two options, one with a closed-in wall, and the second one would have a small gate opening. Their preference is for the closed-in, so we're thinking that's where we'll go. One of these would be Exhibit F1, likely the first one that they prefer. And then the second is, as you go about 175 feet towards the right, as you look at the plan, is the relocated driveway entrance, and there's two options there. One is with a simple dead end of a stone wall coming straight, and the second sort of curves it back in, gives maybe a little bit more graceful entry. And so there seems to be, at least in the meeting last week that we had with a number of the abutters, a slight preference for the second option there. But we thought we could at least demonstrate to you, and tomorrow evening we'll be with the planning board, that we continue to work on things that we hear, questions that we receive from abutters and others about how to adjust and respond and react to things that they are particularly concerned about. So,
So Ned, this would be the main...
So how to add some specificity to all years' worth of conversation, and if it were to go through, how can the neighborhood and town as a whole be confident they're going to get what they think they're going to get? And so that's the development agreement is, as a whole, has been an attempt to sort of keep chunking down into more finite parts and pieces some of those concerns.
So the development agreement itself is pretty straightforward. It defines what the project is and how it would be developed, and it refers to a number of exhibits. The first is an existing conditions plan, which is really what is the property today. They haven't provided that. The second, Exhibit B, is this conceptual site plan. The next is a project development plan and schedule, which is simply a sort of over the next 3 years, if the bylaw passes, what's the phasing of the project. You've got to build the roadway, you've got to build the project in phases, and probably would go sort of in a clockwise manner around the property. So it's an attempt to define sort of how the project gets phased so people know what's coming. Exhibit D is a construction mitigation management plan, which has a lot of detail in it about work hours, delivery times, how do you deal with refuse, how do you deal with recycling, how do you deal with all of those things that people are concerned about, as they live next to a large construction project. Exhibit E is a tree preservation and protection plan, which gets into a detailed description of how we'll go about identifying major trees, specimen trees, and other trees that need to be saved, and those that can't be saved, and what happens if they can't be saved, and so it sets a hierarchy, and it sets out the process for penalties to be paid if a significant tree is damaged and dies as a result of failure. So I know there's still some discussion about how to establish what those penalties or bonds might look like. We're concerned about getting ahead of the planning board on that one because particularly within the planning board's purview is the power to set bonds for the cost, the completion of the road, the completion and management of other infrastructure. So tomorrow night's discussion with the planning board in particular will be helpful on that. And we are meeting tonight. Don't intend to be out in front of the planning board, but the timing of meetings is such that tomorrow night they'll have their chance to review, and our first hope is that there's nothing in it that, is beyond what they feel that their power and authority is under the bylaw and under the special permit process. And if they have specific comments, obviously we would welcome receiving those. And then, as I said, Exhibit F will be two of these photo renderings, and Exhibit G is would be a draft of a conservation restriction. We don't know yet which entity will receive that restriction. So we've got a draft, but we haven't begun to circulate that. I've recently prepared one that was approved in draft form by the planning board for the special permit for the Burks at property, the cluster development at 245 Highland Street. And I know that Marion is working with that draft with respect to the cluster development that she's bringing forward out on Hillside Street. So, and I met with the Conservation Commission last night to talk about the conservation restriction, and the commission being the entity that would hold the CR for the Burke property, they voted to be a willingness to receive it, subject to review and approval of the CR language. And I know that specifically that needs to get to Town Council, it needs to get to the Secretary of Environmental Affairs, it would have to be signed by this board, the commission, and the state. So I haven't gotten that out. I'm happy to share that. I've got a message into John Flynn about sharing that. The drafts would look very similar, so if it works for one, presumably it works for another, subject to which is the entity that receives the CR in this case. We're talking about 60% of this land, most of that green space on that plan, being put into some form of conservation restriction. That's 28 acres of land that would be dedicated with a hierarchy of allowable uses within that green space. And that hierarchy is detailed in the body of the development agreement. So I'll stop there, and obviously Tony has comments, if Jack has comments, you have questions, we're happy to receive and react as we can.
Okay. I have some questions, but why don't we let Tony make some comments
Sure,
first?
I'll try to be brief, but I think the idea of a development agreement is new to Milton, hasn't been done here. I've got a stack of 15 or 20 of them from other towns that have done them. So this is certainly something that's been done in other towns. As I see this is not intended to supplant anyone's role in this process. I see it as concentric circles that sort of move in. The zoning bylaw will allow a circle of things to occur. The development agreement is designed to tighten that up a little bit to the extent that we can at this stage in the process, give a little more specificity, give some protections to neighbors in a variety of different ways. And that doesn't intend to supplant the special permit process, which really brings it down to the fine level of detail. And I think what's intended to be clear in this agreement is that nothing here is going to, or intended to, supplant the role of the planning board, and nothing in particular is going to prevent the planning board from providing more protections. But this is a level of protection that neighbors haven't always had when they've gone into town meeting to say, this is what we think is going to be built, and they have a picture. But they don't necessarily have a level of detail on some of these things that we would anticipate would come, but it's sort of an element of faith. So the goal of the development agreement is to get a little bit more specificity as much as we can. What we have now is a working draft. We continue to tinker with it. I'm still getting feedback from my client and others about things that we should do, and we'll look at other models. Certainly, we want to hear from town council. Certainly, we want to hear any feedback that you folks have, and especially we want to hear if the planning board has some suggestions of things that could go in here now, understanding that they obviously will have a full and complete role in the special permit process when we get there. I do think that this does provide some additional protections to the neighbors. So.
I do have one question, actually a couple. First question is, what would happen to the extent, because obviously we haven't seen a special permit yet, we don't even have a zoning bylaw yet, at this point, but if anything in this agreement were to conflict with either one of those two documents, which document would take precedent?
If it conflicts with the zoning takes precedent.
Yeah.
That's the town's bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
And then the special permit would take precedent over the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, there's nothing in the agreement that would prohibit the action being proposed by the planning board during the special permit process. What is really intended to do is define how we move from the zoning to the special permit, detailing the types of plans that need to be produced over and above what's specified in the zoning itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in terms of hierarchy, it's the zoning bylaw first. The permit cannot be written in a way that's violative
Sure.
of the mandates in the bylaw. And the agreement will come before the special permit. Question would be, what happens in the special permit if it's something that's significantly different than what's in?
Right.
But I think that would only happen after a fairly significant hearing, and it certainly would be a change that could not be proposed by the developer. It would certainly have to be a change that either was proposed by an abutter or the board on its own motion, mm-hmm. and would be acceptable to the developer. So in that case, I think at the point that the special permit would be written, there would be general consensus that whatever that change is
Would be
appropriate.
incorporated back into the...
So the agreement, in the same way you could enter into the agreement, you could amend it. Now, obviously, the neighbors would want to have some input into the process, just like they would in the special permit process. Mm-hmm. They would want to be heard. Right now, the way that it's drafted, I'm trying to figure out in what respects it might conflict. I don't know exactly, yeah. But, I think there could be an amendment if that was necessary to make this work, and it was appropriate.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. Tony, and it's nice to see that the neighbors and Ned and the developer, Jack, you guys are working together on this, which is great, and obviously this is new to the town to do this. But I had a question for you, Tony, because you're representing one of the abutters and talking with some of the neighbors. The traffic plan, has there been any concern related to the amount of traffic that could be produced? And I know that there was a study that Jack had produced and through you, Ned, prior. Is there any update on any of that?
I don't know that we have an updated study or more study. I knew that there is provision in the development agreement for additional work to be done.
Okay.
We will anticipate that will all be incorporated into the special permit process. Is there concern about traffic? Absolutely. It's a nightmare today.
And it's not going away anytime soon. So
but I think there is some recognition. I represent one neighbor, and I'm working with a few others that are on the same page. Not everybody's there at this point. Some people would still like a smaller, slightly smaller project at least. I mean, I think everybody would, except Jack, would like nothing, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
So, it's a question of balancing the use and what types of mitigation are going to be appropriate and doable, and what are the impacts? And we've got one study on impacts. The planning board presumably is going to require additional studies or a peer review of their own to validate these studies. The neighbors haven't undertaken that type of work yet.
We anticipate spending a fair amount of money on a much bigger traffic study. The only thing we've done now is do sort of a comparison analysis of the traffic volumes that would be associated with a 22-lot, 2-acre subdivision, a 33-lot clustered subdivision of the town's cluster bylaw, and a 58-unit, or 64-unit townhouse development. And we did specific traffic counts at Home Inc. and Quistit Brook, and 2 similar developments that Jack has in Belmont, and then averaged those 4 actual traffic counts and compared them to what would be standard analysis for 22 and 33. The numbers compare favorably because there are no children. You don't have that come and go with families, running to after-school games and this and that and the other thing. So the numbers compare favorably.
Yeah.
The agreement in its current state provides that the Walcott parties will prepare an analysis of traffic impacts associated with the proposed development and traffic conditions in the Route 138 Blue Hill Avenue, Canton Avenue corridor. We're going to go all the way to the Reebok Dunkin' Donuts light in Canton, study that, study the light coming back at Canton Ave, Brush Hill Road, and Blue Hill Avenue. And then we've got a study from that intersection to Unquity Road and Canton Avenue, and identify and propose a range of improvements to either calm traffic, adjust traffic. One would be a set of improvements to MassDOT, which owns Route 138 as a state highway, and they own those signals. We've begun to talk to them about the notion of studying their traffic sequencing, because our feeling is, and our traffic consultant agrees, that a real issue is the failure of the light in Canton to flush traffic going southbound in the evening. It was initially set, and it was designed to address traffic coming out of Reebok in the morning and out in the evening, and so the light works to their benefit, but not to the benefit generally of traffic going
So
southbound.
might I suggest, Administrator Dennehy has a great relationship, working relationship, and I do as well from my former time working for Tom Menino with Tom Tinlin, the Administrator of Mass DOT, and that we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone in looking at, as we know that there is a constant cut-through traffic problem, and so if there is going to be money spent on this, that we include, I think, Mike, your input and relationship to work together. I think that will be very beneficial for all of us, not only for this development, but for other people who live in the town. I think that, so that's a very positive, I think, that we look at this as a dual kind of purpose.
And I did I've met with Walter Heller.
Yep.
And his traffic engineer. I've spoken to Tom about it. He's aware of what we're doing, but that was before you were on board, Mike.
Sure.
So certainly, once we get past town meeting, we'll want to sit down with you and sit with Tom and the guys at MassDOT and identify specifically what can be done, what study should we be doing. As Tony said, the bylaw provides for traffic study. The agreement and the bylaw also provide for the requirement that that we pay for the town's peer review.
Sure.
So,
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Related to the traffic, because I think you were reading from Section 12, Ned, and later on in that section, there's reference to the Walcott parties making a contribution toward construction of a footbridge over Route 138, and that is the first I've heard of a
Yeah,
footbridge
me
over
too.
Route 138.
This-
I would like a little more detail about that.
This was a question that was posed at a recent meeting by Denny Swenson on behalf of the Friends of the Blue Hills.
Okay.
Interesting concept, huh?
Whether as part of a broader, I think there's a bike path, a walking path connection that wants to go down under 128 and connect into Westwood. would we be able to extend that with some sort of a footbridge over 138 and connect it to the trailside parking area? Where it would go, how it would go. MassDOT, it's a multi-million-dollar bridge. Once you get into all of the things that go into handicapped accessibility, et cetera. Where do you put it? Is there sufficient right-of-way? Are there environmental impacts? Because DCR owns both sides of the highway. There's a lot of ifs. What Jack said, and because he had agreed to a similar thing in Belmont, was that I'd put up some amount of money towards that in the condition that it got permitted, it got designed, it got built by MassDOT, and that, and that it be sunsetted at a certain time. So we've responded to that request in this way. I have no idea whether a footbridge is capable of being permitted, never mind getting there from a fiscal perspective, but it's one of those things we said yes if the dollar amount's reasonable and the time frame.
Has there been any conversation with MassDOT about that yet? No, okay.
That'd be a pretty high footbridge, too. I mean, to
Well, it's
allow...
gotta
Probably be like the JFK footbridge.
The Arthur Fiedler footbridge.
Oh, the Arthur Fiedler, yeah.
On the,
Expensive.
Yeah.
Starrow Drive.
have you had a lot of input from neighbors? I know we've got Tony here representing one neighbor in particular, and he said and Tony, you said you've gotten some comments from some neighbors who are of a like mind on this. Are there other neighbors that have had, at least have all of them had an opportunity to weigh in, and have you gotten comments from some, at least some of them?
Yes, we've had, they've received at least 2 drafts in red line form. We met 2 weeks ago at Milton Hospital. There were 6 or 7 neighbors there. Following that meeting, we had specific conversations about some of the items. Tucker Smith submitted 2 pages of comment, most of which were adopted in some form or another, either within an exhibit or in the body of the agreement themselves. And Tony submitted comments to me on behalf of his client, and most of those comments were accepted and adopted. So other than that, we have not received other written comment to the specific language. We've gotten questions from Ken Mader and Gene O'Brien about, well, what's it going to look like when if we come out of our driveway and we're looking across the street, we know what we look at now. So we commissioned this, the Exhibit Fs, and, that's the extent of the comment, really.
Gone out to 30 people, probably 30 people
Yeah.
on the list, I'm guessing that.
Okay.
Pretty inclusive list.
Now, is your expectation still that this would be signed prior to town meeting, or at least during town meeting before this article is considered, which is the last night? Is that still the plan?
I think that would be the goal, because I think that's the way it provides protection to the neighbors who, when town meeting is voting on the article.
So I guess to that extent, we're obviously going to have a different board at that point in time. So we'll have one new member who's going to be coming in, whoever it is will be coming in fresh to this. We have one meeting before then. We also have meetings the nights of town meetings. So there's certainly an opportunity for us to have further discussion about this. We talked previously about wanting to at least have input from the planning staff, and town planner Bill Clark is here tonight. I know there's been different viewpoints on the planning board expressed as to the extent that they want to be involved in this. Some don't want to be involved in it, others do, to varying degrees. So it will be interesting to see how your discussion with the planning board goes tomorrow. Clearly, we're not planners, they are, and we're not looking to step on the toes of another elected board. So I think we'll be looking to see what substantive comments they might have. It does seem very inclusive of a lot of different topics. It seemed to me that maybe the construction management plan should be reviewed by the building department, and specifically Joe Prondak, as well as the planning staff, and that perhaps the tree plan should at least have an opportunity to be reviewed by the Conservation Commission and the Shade Tree Advisory Committee. Now, they may not all have meetings before town meeting, but if it can get circulated to them, at least the chair of those committees or some of the members can individually send comments over to town council or to Mike Dennehy or whoever might be the appropriate, or Bill Clark, whoever might be the appropriate person, so we can get some more eyes on it. Because, I for one, this is not an area where, it's not something that typically comes before this board, that we have any real expertise in construction management. I think that's something we'd want Joe Prondak and other people who have expertise in those areas to weigh in on.
Each of those 2 plans are substantially taken from the plans that are part of the special permit that were granted by the planning board for the Woodmere
Okay, that's good.
Project. So they've been, in this form, they've been through the town. Tucker Smith in particular has, we've included language about the requirement for the Shade Tree Advisory Committee to have input into the development of the final plans, have input into how the trees that are damaged get replaced, and those types of things. So we're certainly happy to share that more specifically with them.
All right, section 16, I think the written notice to the town, we just probably need to specify how that would be provided or to whom it would be provided. I think that section could be tightened up. That was the only, other than the footbridge, that was the only other thing that really jumped out at me. Walcott Residential LLC is the owner of is going to be the owner of the property, and
I own a piece of it presently under that special purpose entity, and the rest of the property would be rolled into that.
so is Northland Residential Corp., is that the sole member of Walcott Residential LLC? Okay. Are there any other affiliated companies that would be involved as maybe a construction company or a management company that should be parties to this agreement that would have some role to play with this development?
Well, my brokerage company is a different name and would work for Walcott Residential, and my construction company is a different name, so we'll weave those in. Yep.
The permit certainly would run to Walcott
Yes.
Residential LLC.
Other comments, or questions from members of the board or from the people who are here at the table, or from the planning director?
I do know that the construction management plan is based on what was created for Woodmere. It's also been used at 333 Brush Hill. It's been used at 41 Pleasant, the subdivision up there. So we have, it's basically the same one that's going to be used for Pulte at the town farm site. So,
And are there any experiences, Bill, from those, maybe we should get Joe Prondak opinion on this, is there anything we've learned from those that should be changed in the new construction management plan? Say noise or some other issue that
And
we're having problems with?
and we have, and each one gets tighter and tighter. So yes, all of the hours are going to be the same. Daily, Saturdays, no Sundays, no holidays. The directions coming in and out, deliveries, it is all getting picked up by these. One of the questions that Mr. Hurley asked earlier was, it is controlled by, on the second page at the top, it said, provided that all subsequent steps shall be taken in order to cause Section 3 bylaw amendment as adopted by town meeting to be incorporated into the town zoning bylaw, then Walcott parties commit to the following. You create the bylaw, this is what they're going to do. So it's the bylaw that they must comply with. I do know that there is discussion going on within the planning board itself that I believe the majority do not want to be signatories to this because they are the permit granting authority. They don't want to take their vote on a project before the application is before them. So they will not be doing that. Construction management plan, the tree preservation, I haven't even finished with the whole thing, but my first and second glance through is, it's pretty definitive. There is a site arborist that goes with the project, so they're not taking anything down without the arborist's opinion first.
Anything else, Ned or
We
Tony?
also pay for a town to have a peer review site arborist. So the town will have the ability to hire a clerk of the works to oversee the construction on a daily and periodic basis on behalf of the town. That'll be paid for by the developer, which will be, so it won't be, just the town's building inspector out there when he can be out there. It'll be someone working on behalf of the town, reporting either to Bill or to Joe, and reporting back to the neighborhood that, yes, they're complying with the requirements of the permit and the...
So if as a result of your meeting with the planning board tomorrow night, there are some more changes that are made to this draft, that will be circulated to all the neighbors and the abutters, the group that you've been working with, as well as the boards?
Yes.
In town council, obviously, okay.
Yeah, and I think if there are other people that are interested in weighing in or it being copied on these things, they should just make themselves known to Ned or to me, and we can make sure that people get copies of things.
Okay, good.
Because I think input is important in this process.
We're, fundamentally, we're responding to particularly Tony and his client's request that we work with the town on a development agreement. We're comfortable that we'll produce a development that complies with the four corners of the zoning bylaw, and that the special permit will arrive at something that everybody's happy with, and we're used to doing that routinely. But, this is a neighborhood that's not used to following specifically that type of things. It's new, it's a big development with respect in their backyard, and so we understand the importance, and because there are other examples in other towns, and particularly the Weston one, which we downloaded from, got from the Middlesex Registry of Deeds and worked on, so we're happy to accommodate the abutters in the town to get there.
Okay, so if anyone's watching and they have comments or they'd like a copy of this, maybe the person they should contact is Bill Clark to arrange to get a copy to an interested neighbor who might not be too involved in the process yet. And we'll set aside some time on our agenda before the town meeting nights to have any further discussion on this as necessary.
It might also be a good idea to reach out to the 2 or 3 candidates that are running for selectmen to get them a copy, specifically a copy of the agreement.
Maybe Mr. Corcoran should
I'll send it to
provide it.
them. I do know that this is a draft that is from the end of last week. After the planning board takes a look at it tomorrow night, we'll make it available on the planning board website.
This draft is dated 4/6/17. Any new draft will have a new date as it comes forward.
Okay.
All right, do you have anything else you want to add?
Just one thing, thank you for your time tonight. Just so you know, Ned and I have pulled together a significant mailing that has gone out to all town meeting members, inviting them to a series of site walks and/or I'll call them informational meetings. The first site walk scheduled for this Saturday morning. Then we have an informational meeting scheduled for next Thursday at the Council of Aging, and then another site walk, I think,
29th.
The 29th. And the purpose is really to, for those town meeting members for elsewhere in town, and there's 279 of them, that will be looking at the various articles. We felt it would give them an opportunity to learn a little bit more about what might be coming before them. So that mailing went out yesterday, and it's an invite, well, it's a sort of an executive summary of what the article is, what the development is, a site plan, and then a call for an invitation to attend. So to the degree that any town meeting members are watching tonight, we look forward to seeing you on.
So 9 o'clock this Saturday morning, in the middle driveway, halfway up the hill. Council on Aging at 6 o'clock next Thursday, the 20th, and 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, April 29th. Same location on the site, and we'll do a full site walk and give people a chance to see the entire property.
Okay, that's great.
Great.
Anyone else at the table, any comments?
I just have a question, kind of. Has the town ever employed a clerk of the works before? Or ever seen a project that has funding available for it? We used it in Boston. It's very, very effective.
I'm not sure the school building committee might have, but I'm not.
If they did, well, Tony would know the answer to that question.
Well, we had a project manager that worked for us to manage the project.
Right, that's
and oversee it.
required.
But I think there was additional funding there for additional building department employees that did a substantial number of inspections.
Yeah, it's a huge resource. It's the liaison to the community. It's, you know, the liaison to Joe's office, Bill's office. It's a great idea. Really, really good idea.
No. We never,
Never had one.
no.
Yeah.
Not in a private venture.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good idea.
We don't have that many development projects.
They're of this magnitude, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even Fuller was a case of, we knew who they were. They had their people that reported directly to Joe, or to the building inspector at that time, Steve. I don't believe we've ever had one for private development.
And there's a lot of activity in town, as you know.
Yeah.
And Joe's office is that much more busy. This is certainly something that makes sense from the scale of the project, protection of the neighborhood, the protection of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a lot of qualified applicants, too.
And it would typically be the developer that would hire the clerk of the works.
Right.
Yeah. I suppose that could be built into the special permit if they wanted to. Yeah.
It actually works good because I get calls now for Woodmere questions. I get calls now for the Pleasant Street, the Jill Kathleen project. I get calls for that one. I still get calls for the Women's Club one. So, yeah, this would be, talk to this individual.
All right, well then, if nothing else, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you again soon, I'm sure. All right, we're on to number 8, a one-day liquor license.
I'll make a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for the First Parish Milton Unitarian Universalist Church at 535 Canton Avenue on Sunday, May 7, 2017, from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. for a dinner celebrating the installation of its new minister.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 9, an Arbor Day proclamation.
I'll move to approve and sign a proclamation declaring Friday, April 28, 2017, as Arbor Day in the town of Milton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 other proclamations to approve tonight.
Make a motion to ratify proclamations for Joseph Murphy to recognize his work with the Milton Housing Authority and for Kristen Bagley Jones and Leroy Walker for their work with the Milton School Committee.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to say, I was actually a town administrator myself. We're at the Joe Murphy, at the Housing Authority meeting, and it was a very touching ceremony. It was, he was very touched by it.
Really was, yeah. Tom gave a great speech, really good speech, and I think he was surprised. We were all hiding in the kitchen.
I think so.
His family up, his son's a firefighter in Hingham, and his wife is, I believe they're members at Home, Inc.?
They're at home, and
Yeah.
my parents are, and I was unable to attend due to a work conflict, which I felt bad about, but Joe has been an incredible resource to the town in many ways, and obviously at the Milton Housing Authority, so, and no one better than Tom to be able to give the kudos to him, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Tom. I'm sorry I couldn't attend it either, but long-term town meeting member, how many years? Over 30 on the Housing Authority.
Yes.
Yeah, building opened
Almost
in 85.
Might be a
Building opened in
record.
85, he started working there in 86.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible.
And Kristen and Leroy, we've already spoken about tonight, but very nice tribute to both of them this evening. All right, then, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Item 11 is our annual report.
I guess I'll make the motion to approve the FY 2016 annual report of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Taxi licenses.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the following taxi cab licenses for 2017. Milton Cab Company, 10 Des Moines Road, Quincy, 3 taxi cab licenses. Parkway Cab, Inc., 66 Alpheus Road, Rosendale, 1 taxi cab license.
I'll second.
And we have a detailed memo from Lieutenant Alber in the file regarding this.
Yeah. Is this fewer licenses than we've had in the past?
I believe it is.
It seems so.
His memo said
Yeah.
Uber
We're
is,
starting to
To
have an impact
impact
on
on- yeah.
taxi
Yeah.
licenses. So one company last year opted out
Mm-hmm.
not to have any licenses issued. There's one cab for Milton Cab Company that's in repair, and until such time as it's viable, it won't be licensed.
I see.
So there'll be another one before you, but there's only 5 this year, where last year I think there were 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
at one point, there was a much bigger number than that, wasn't there?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. We have some boards and committee appointments.
Okay, I'll propose a motion to appoint Alyssa L. Cook of 70 Fairbanks Road, George DeGaius of 660 Canton Avenue, William Ritchie of 525 Canton Ave, John Sheldon of 213 School Street, Dennis Cohane of 1035 Brush Hill Road, Kathy M. Henderson of 121 Atherton Street, Therese Desmond of 211 Center Street, and Daniel Daly of 15 Quarry Lane to serve on the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee through April 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Fair Housing Director.
Make a motion to appoint William B. Clark Jr. as Fair Housing Director for the town of Milton through April 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a discussion of the May 2017 annual town meeting, and I put this on the agenda mainly for the purpose of addressing or responding to the inquiry we had from the moderator, Bob Hiss, about recording presentations on articles that I think everyone probably received. Ned Corcoran is going to be doing a presentation on the 2 zoning articles. And these presentations would be taped and aired on a continuous loop, I think, at right before town meeting for Milton Access Television, as a way to help limit some of the discussion at town meeting. Now, the question I think for our board is, are any of our articles, do we think we'll need a presentation of more than 10 minutes for any of the articles, such as the speed limit or the traffic commission composition, the military compensation? Those are the
Yeah, I don't see them
non-budget
as-
articles that
I
we've
don't see them
submitted.
as being longer.
I didn't either.
No.
And
I commend
I think it's a good idea.
moderator
Yeah.
in doing this to not to expedite it in a way to move a meeting faster, but to make it so that it's more efficient. I think that, people, we're into technology these days, and I think any way that we can kind of,
Now, is-
organize.
Does he want to do that with the budget presentations as well, like the schools generally do?
I think the budget presentation was left out of that. I think that was, in the response in the survey, I think that the majority said that the budget was one that they wanted to have discussion about.
and it's always the school budget that takes the long
Yeah,
discussion.
that's
because
the
of
only one that
size.
really has a
But
lengthy-
the warrant committee is still planning to give their presentation at the beginning of town meeting, and that should cover the impacts of the 2 budgets. And the police, the fire, even though those are big budgets, those typically haven't taken long presentations. Sometimes it's debate about a certain item in it, or maybe
Right. But there's
having
no
the department head answer a
presentation
question,
per se,
but it didn't seem to me that any of them would take longer than 10 minutes, and it sounds like you both agree. So it sounds like we're agreed that we're not going to
Yes.
videotape a presentation. I think it makes most sense for the 2 zoning articles, at least for this year, for the first year that Bob's putting this into play. I agree with you, David. This is a creative idea that he put forward. So
That really is.
hopefully it'll help town meeting members who may not be as familiar with the Ice House or the Carberry zoning articles. All right, did anyone have anything else to discuss about the town meeting coming up? Other than to thank Lee Michael McLean and the warrant committee for all their hard work. The final proof was done, and a lot of people weighed in and did a lot of proofreading, so I know that that's hopefully in the mail to the homes and will be delivered very shortly.
I think it's being delivered to the post office on Friday for mailing.
Good, delivered on Friday to the post office, so it should be in the homes early next week. All right, then, we have the Henry's matter we've added to the agenda. Our previous amendment to our MOA, we extended a date for the deal basically to be in place to get all the permits and approvals from the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission by a date in April, I think it's April 30th or April 15th. And we're extending, the current status of this is, I had a conversation with John Kieran, the chair of the Conservation Commission, late this afternoon. The Conservation Commission approved the order of conditions for the Henry's project in February. They've been working out some of the written conditions, and they've had some drafts back and forth with the applicant, which is Carrick Realty Trust, and they've now resolved all of the open issues. So it's just a matter of getting the final order of conditions out and filed with the town clerk, and then there's a 21-day appeal period that still has to be waited out, and that has to run before we're able to take the next steps under our agreement, which is to transfer the town-owned property to Carrick Realty. So this proposed second amendment would just extend the deadlines until, we picked a date in July 15th, just because we've got that 21-day appeal period. Then we have some steps on the town's end that have to take place to convey the property to Carrick, get everything recorded. There may be a couple of other hoops we have to jump through, and then we're on to the demolition phase. And I know that Mr. Connolly is anxious to move forward with this and has been following up.
It's Great. If I can make a motion to approve the Second Amendment to Memorandum of Agreement effective as April 12, 2017, between the Town of Milton, Mass. and Carrick Realty Trust.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Town Administrators Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Some good news came out of the State House on Monday. The House Ways and Means budget was released. What it does for our town budget, predominantly from Chapter 70 money. We saw very little movement in the unrestricted local aid. We did see an increase of $160,000 in Chapter 70 money. Net out some of the assessments that increased, and we have about $149,000 more in the budget that we anticipated. It would be my recommendation to give that money to the school department. You know, what we had talked at length with the warrant committee and this board about how to spend the shortfall, how to cut that shortfall. So the shortfall, which did exist for all intents and purposes at $1.4 million, we can now knock about $150,000 off that. So if the Senate budget comes in where the House Ways and Means was, and we do hope it does, and that's the question mark, but I think we're pretty confident that it may, that we're looking at about a $1.25 million shortfall. Giving that $150,000 back to the school department would balance the cut a little further. What was a 73% ownership of the school department would then become a 57%. So you'd be 57% school department, 43% town side. So that's some pretty good news that came out of the State House. Hopefully it follows through with the
And a great recommendation.
Senate when we hear that. So.
Yeah, the thing that's a pain is we probably won't know if it holds up because
Right.
it's go through conference.
Sure.
Right.
So it'll be sometime in June before
Yeah.
we really know.
Yeah. So we look back at the last couple of years, it doesn't seem that the Senate moves much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that needle doesn't move much after the House Ways and Means, so, again, so we'll look towards June, but right now, the non-contingent budget has about a $1.25 million shortfall if what we heard, the news we heard on Monday follows through, so. Just for those viewing at home, we did put a residential override calculator on the town's website. If you go on the town's main page and look in the bottom right-hand corner, it's purely an informational tool that shows the impact of the proposed override number based on an assessed value. Great work done by Town Assessor Bob Bushway and IT Department Jim Segorian and Rob Mell to get that up. The users will search for a parcel, come up with the assessed value, and then it'll calculate on a quarterly, monthly, and annual basis what that impact would mean to you. So it's a neat tool if the viewers at home want to take a look at it. As you've heard, I will not be reappointing DPW Director Joe Lynch after July 1st. I would like to thank Mr. Lynch for his years of service and wish him well in his future endeavors. As we move forward, July 1st. A lot of housekeeping stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on in the town. Luckily, the grass is starting to grow. The Milton Parks Easter Egg Festival, the 18th annual, is on Saturday, April 15th. Ages 2 to 6 at Cunningham Hall, rain or shine. Admission for a picture with the Easter Bunny. There's activities from 9 to 10 a.m. An Easter egg hunt from 10:30 to 11 a.m. So I was up at the high school gym last night, and they finished up their spring basketball program. A lot of fun, organized chaos. The work that Paul D'Amato and that group does is amazing. It's a lot of fun. And this is their season. They're moving into different parts every single day. So the summer programs are coming online, and they're starting to get stuff ready. So I just want to thank them for all that stuff that's going on. Milton Summer Enrichment Program. The online registration starts April 26th. Go to MSE at miltonps.org. I believe it starts June 26th and runs through July 27th. Just some other small stuff. 'Tis the season, right? The streets are a little dirtier than we like. There's some potholes out there. The grass in the fields is going to start to grow. Please reach out to Town Hall, right? Call the Public Works Department. Call the Parks Department. Notice there's a couple of neighborhoods that are doing spring cleanups this week, Hillside Neighborhood Association. If you need help from the Public Works Department before or after, let us know. We'd love to help, give you some bags, help you clean up, give you some tools to borrow, make sure your debris gets picked up. So just want to work with the neighborhood associations and make sure that we keep our neighborhood the way we like it. And just work with the neighborhood association. So that's about all I have.
Okay.
Pass it over to the chair.
I put on 2 brief updates on the agenda, mainly because there's a lot of people questioning what's the status of the East Milton deck, and there's a lot of talk on, especially on social media, about airplane noise. Our Massport Community Advisory Committee representative could not attend our meeting tonight, but did pass along some motions that the CAC has put forward to Massport, and I thought I would just summarize what they are very briefly. There are 4 of them. These were voted very recently, and Cindy Christensen, who is our representative, was at this meeting and was, I think, one of the moving party or the second on some of these motions. The first one is to ask that Massport advocate so that airlines that fly the Airbus 3 series, which is the 320, the 380s, the 380 being the very big 2-level plane, that those planes that are coming into Logan Airport install noise suppressors that are known as the vortex generators. And that's a technical term, but it's one that it's a small little piece of equipment that could be installed on a plane and help eliminate some of the noise. We've written to all the airlines that service Logan about that. Andy Schmidt, the chair of the advisory committee, has been very helpful to us in the vortex generators. So that is now a recommendation that the Massport CAC has made to Massport. They've also recommended that there be a Fly Quiet program adopted at Logan Airport, which is similar to one at San Francisco and at Chicago O'Hare Airport. Massport CAC is also recommending that there be what they're calling a 21st century noise-based landing fee, so that if the planes that are louder, if they're flying into Logan, then they're going to pay an extra fee based on the noise that they're generating. And the idea there is to give them an incentive to fly quieter into Logan Airport, which I believe it doesn't say in this, but I believe this is being looked at or implemented at other airports. That the CAC put forward to Massport was a resolution asking that they comply with a record of decision regarding the departure procedures from several runways, including runway 4R and 33L, arrivals on 33L and 4R, and departures from other runways. So those are 4 motions that have gotten a lot of discussion and debate at the CAC. That's where a lot of the action is, and a lot of the people who are wondering what's going on, a lot of the action that the town has been involved in has been through our CAC representative at the CAC. It's not the only action that's taking place, but that's where a lot of the work is right now. And the board recognizes that we had a pretty tough 12 or 13 days of airplane noise ending about a week ago, and today was another pretty bad day of airplane noise. So we hear it, we sympathize, we empathize. We're doing all that we can on this issue, and we know that it's a problem for a lot of our residents. So we want to assure them that we're working on these, and I want to thank our CAC representative for bringing this to our attention and letting us know what's going on at the CAC. And we'll try to have her into an upcoming meeting to give an update. And same with Andy Schmidt, the chair of the committee. The second item is the East Milton deck, the overpass over 93. And just to briefly let people know, we do have letters that have come out from the Federal Highway Administration and the Massachusetts Secretary of Environmental Affairs a couple of months ago. We're well aware of those. We've had some follow-up discussions, the town administrator, the planning director, members of the board. We've had some outreach with Howard Stein Hudson, which is the consultant that's had worked for the town, is now working in the past couple of years, has been working for the state on this project. And there will be more to come in the next several weeks on this topic. We have an election coming up. The board's going to be changing, so we're going to have a different board that will be working on this going forward. And then we're into a very busy town meeting. So we're probably looking at later in May or early June at the earliest, when we have possibly a public meeting that would explore some different options for the project, or provide some additional information, or both. And just wanted to acknowledge that and respond to some of the comments that are coming up on social media, to let people know that just because you may not be hearing about it at a televised selectmen's meeting doesn't mean that a lot of things aren't happening through town government, whether it's through the day-to-day management of the town or members of the board and subsequent meetings and discussions that are taking place. And
If I
we'll
could
have
just
more to
follow
say.
up, Madam Chair, on both of those
Yes.
items on the airplane noise. We are dealing with this every day, and it is of great concern. Just today, I got an email from a resident of Brush Hill Road who was concerned that the tutors for his children were interrupted by low-flying planes. And I got a phone call from my wife saying that, geez, there were a couple planes that were really, really loud today. She was working from home. And so I can empathize. We empathize with everybody out there, and we're doing everything in our power to work with our CAC and our Airplane Noise Advisory Committee. So that is of great importance to us, and that's not going away. And then also on the East Milton deck, there is no question we're on top of this. We will create an implementation committee at some point to move forward on this. So I think that it's duly noted that you bring this up, that this board is concerned and looks forward to making some good progress on this and implementing.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess everybody has to keep in mind too about the deck project. It is now a state highway project. It's not a town of Milton project.
That's right.
So we have input into it certainly, and obviously MassDOT, listens to our input quite keenly, and they wanted a deck project that we agree with, but the ultimate decision is at this point MassDOT.
Right.
Sometimes these days, social media takes on a life of its own, and an issue, as well-intentioned as it may be, somebody puts up a post, then maybe there's 100 comments after it, and it keeps snowballing, and there's a lot of misinformation that gets out there. And so the point was really just, as we've all said, to assure people that town government is working on these matters, and just because they're not an agenda item at our table doesn't mean that they're not being worked on or advanced or discussed. And we certainly value transparency. We want this to be a very public discussion and some updates, but that does take time, because Howard Stein Hudson is the engineer for the project and is under contract with the state, and we need to work through certain channels.
Yeah. And in this age of social media, it can take a life of its own, and it's I think we don't have right now we don't have a communications director, where many towns and cities are going to that, and I'd like to see us start to look back into acquiring one, because I think that it's about getting factual information out there. I think that it's good for residents to be updated on a regular basis on what the facts are, and I think that it serves us, it makes us more efficient and more reputable at the end of the day. So it's just something that we can look into as we move forward.
That's all I have to report. Does anyone else have anything else to bring up tonight?
Just briefly, I just want to congratulate the Milton Playground planners and specifically the Parks Commissioners, Kevin Chisholm, Bob Kelly, Regina Malley-Phillips, for their work on Shields Park. That's the first of the four that, and if you drive by there, it's the structure is up. It's amazing. I mean, absolutely, it's amazing. That's what I can say. And Dave Perdios and his crowd, they've really done a fabulous job. It's been a great collaboration, so I want to congratulate them on that. And then lastly, we go to sports. We seem to always go to sports, and here we are at track again. But Smith Charles from the Milton High track team, Athlete of the Year, unbelievable accomplishment. So Coach Tom Shaw, Coach of the Year. We are becoming a national leader in track right now, and just recently the girls from the cross-country team were pictured on the scoreboard out in center field at the Red Sox game for their accomplishments. So, get on board if you're not on board right now, because they're running away.
It's terrific news. I didn't know that. That's wonderful. All right. If nothing else to report, we had no citizens speak tonight. Do we have anything specifically for our agenda on the 18th or a future agenda that we need to add?
Just a couple items. We're continuing to work on pilot. I think that the pilot program, we're going to be adding Mike Zulis to our committee at some point in the near future. I think he brings a lot of great talents and negotiating skills, and his professional experience as a lawyer. I think that that's a big plus for the town. I think that
definitely.
this is something that we want to, really want to work in a partnership with the nonprofits. So I think that's a good update there. And also, Administrator Denny, if you'd like to give a little input on Hewlin.
Yeah, so there's a meeting coming up. We're very close to putting a 10-year permit together with Curry College in the DCR. There's a meeting that's going to take place Friday morning. We understand that the contract will expire Saturday morning, so we just want to get it in place and make sure everybody knows that the town of Milton appreciates being the leaseholder for that, and has a great relationship with Curry College as the anchor tenant, and obviously we'd be nowhere without DCR and its assets, so
It's a true public-private partnership with a college and a state agency and a town, and I think it's a real win-win for all. And I think that, we did a lot of work, and I want to congratulate, the Milton Youth Hockey Association and the Friends of Hewlin for the work that they provided, the collaboration between Curry College. Without Curry, this doesn't happen. I think that people need to know that at home, and I think that it's going to be a great resource for all the community for many years to come.
Milton Youth Hockey is becoming one of the strongest youth hockey programs in eastern Massachusetts. Tryouts were held last week. Yeah. There's going to be 7 score teams, I believe, 6 mite teams, 4 Bantam teams, and I think half a dozen Pee Wee teams. So, there's a lot of kids using that rink. I was amazed at the number of girls down there. I think they can field 3 or 4 full teams now. It's become its own little niche down there, and it's great. And that partnership is a good partnership. Hopefully we can finalize it.
Hopefully we can get to the 25-year lease at some point in time that we really, I think, desperately need to really do the capital improvements that, and that are necessary in that place. Because there are a lot of capital needs for that facility.
Agreed, yep.
Okay, then we'll adjourn the Board of Selectmen's meeting. We also have tonight a meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund, so we're going to call that meeting to order. And all we have tonight is an executive session for trustees of Governor Stoughton. So I will move that we enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to real property, the town farm land, believing that having such discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the trustees, and to return to open session for the purpose of adjourning.
Second.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So now we're in executive session.